Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Sales Manager Academy podcast. As always, I'm your host, Omar, and we talk about leadership when it comes to anything having to do with the boutique retail world. So think wireless retail, think AV, think appliances, think everything that's outside of your traditional big box retailer. Typically, you're working with companies that have smaller footprints. We're not talking about the thousands for the most part. Some of them might have a few hundred, right? Low to mid hundreds. Majority of you guys are probably in a company that's got a footprint of, say, 50 or less locations. So there's a lot that goes into this, and a lot of it too is also what you're missing or what you feel you're missing. You may feel that the company doesn't have the right support for you as a leader, or for you to be able to help your team to really grow and really become the people that they can be. I've met great sellers that work for small companies that have enjoyed their time there, but they also wish that there was maybe a little bit more growth opportunity for them within not just the organization, but also just career wise to feel a little bit more fulfilled outside of just doing the traditional selling, right? So there's a lot as a leader that you wish you could do, that you want to be able to do, that you just may feel that the support level isn't there. The organization isn't allowing this, isn't putting effort into, you know, any kind of leadership development or any of the sort. You might feel that you're constantly churning and burning employees, that you can't find people to work, right? And I say that in quotes because it's not a matter of not being able to find people. It's that you're trying to find unicorns. You're trying to find people that have the it factor. And realistically, nobody has the it factor and is going to be really, really successful and or bring that change the organization wants. It's really better to train people up in the organization so that they know more about the organization. They have a better understanding of the organization. I'm not saying that you can't bring an employee from the outside, hire somebody from the outside, and they not make a change that's going to be great for the organization. What I'm saying is that that chance is very little because you got to understand they still need to learn how the organization runs works. It doesn't matter if they come from a similar or the same industry. The organization is not the same. They have different processes. They have different ways that the departments or department heads communicate with each other. There's a lot of differences, and it takes time to learn those nuances, as opposed to somebody who's essentially brought up, who's grown up in the organization, and they have, not just a few months, maybe a couple of years under the belt. So they have a better understanding of where the organization is, maybe some of the, you know, pits that the company has that could be better, that they could make a change that, hey, that one change is going to bring in effectively a 10 to 20% bump in the bottom line company wide. You never know when that's going to happen, but that happens more when you bring somebody into a leadership role. You help raise somebody, grow somebody from the organization. Okay. And as a leader, it's understanding how you can help train and develop and coach your people. It's not about do as I say, not as I do. It's not, I'm going to visit the location and I'm going to coach you by writing you up. Write-ups and coaching sessions are not the same. A write-up is a cop out. As a leader, if you're writing people up because that's the way you're going to coach them up into the organization or coach them out, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting up the employees for failure. You're pretty much telling everybody you don't give a fuck about the employees or anybody there. And that's what you want to stay away from. You don't want to do that. You want, as a leader, you want to give a crap. You want to make sure that your team is going to be successful, that every single person that you bring on board, you're doing everything within your power to make sure that they are successful as possible. And when we're talking about a sales position that's commission based as well or has a commission aspect, right? Because a lot of these companies do either a draw or do a base plus commission. It's not just commission by itself. But when you have that element, it's prudent for you to want to make sure that your team's successful, not that you're throwing spaghetti on the wall and well, eventually I'm going to find somebody and they're going to stick. That is wasted time. That's wasted energy. You could have been better off developing that person, mentoring them, actually spending time to train them. And where you might have thought, well, I got rid of them because they just didn't cut it after 2 months. It's fucking 2 months. Do you know how much training and developing you can actually accomplish within that time frame and how better off that employee could be? Listen, just a little bit of training can turn brand new employees into amazing people within a 45-day period. That's within a 2-month period. A lot of people don't do that. They only give it 2 weeks, maybe a month if you're lucky. And then you're trying to get them out of the organization, out of the business, and saying, oh, they just didn't cut it. They interviewed well, but they didn't cut it. They didn't interview well. It's that you're not offering anything on the back end for training and developing. And that's a hard pill to swallow for owners of small businesses, for the leaders within the organization, because it falls on them. It falls on you to make sure that that's built into it. But here's where a lot of people don't understand. A lot of that comes from the field. It doesn't come from the top down because the executives, the owners, the people at the top are running the organization from a different perspective. Listen, at the end of the day, the owners, the executives, they do not run the organization. That is something that everybody needs to understand. They cannot do what hundreds or thousands of employees do on a daily basis in the field. Let them fire everybody and find out the next day exactly what it takes to run the organization. They're making decisions in the direction of how the organization will go, but they don't actually run the organization. When you have people that grow from the field into leadership roles, they have a better understanding of how the organization runs. They have a better understanding of a lot of the restraints, a lot of the issues that the company is running into that they're not seeing from the top down because they don't understand how the organization actually runs. It's crazy if you think about it. But as a leader, one of the things that you want to really focus on is making sure that you're training and developing your people. Because by focusing on that, you're not only doing something that a lot of people have never had in their life, which is somebody who's giving a damn about the direction that they're going in, right? And making an actual effort to guide them, to mentor them, to tell them, like, hey, you don't want to do this, is going to mess up, right? But also, more importantly, listening to them and listening to the, issues that they're having, maybe some of the struggles, but also letting them solve those problems and letting them actually create those muscles, create those new neural connections in their mind, in their brain, to create new habits that are going to allow them to actually make better decisions faster and sooner rather than later. It takes time to develop them. It doesn't take as much time as you think it does, but it does take time, effort, and energy on your part as a leader to develop, guide, and mentor your people by coaching them. And the most dangerous phrase in leadership, if you don't know this, that you could be telling your people or telling anybody about your people is that's just how they are when it comes to their performance or when it comes to how they act, right? You don't want to do that to your people. You don't want to do that to your local leaders. You don't want to do that to your reps because it kills their growth. It stifles them because you're essentially putting a cap of what they're at. Instead, there's a couple different things that you can do, right? Once again, you don't want to go with that's just how they are because you've already, one, given up on trying to coach them. Two, in their eyes, they see that no matter what they do, they will never be able to change that perspective of themselves. And as a leader, you're making that true because it goes back to the adage. The old, I know you guys all seen it in the school libraries back when we were kids, right? But a parachute and mind is just like a parachute. It only works when it's open. It's the same thing as a leader, right? The moment you say that, well, that's just how that employee is, they're never going to change. Well, that's just how they are. I can't expect anything more out of them. You're trumpeting and you're literally cutting off their ability to become better. And you're also limiting the amount of resource that you will give them when it comes to training and developing. That is the thing that a lot of people, a lot of leaders struggle with. And there's ways around that. Okay. But that is a very dangerous phrase as a leader to be saying because it shuts down your brain and it also shuts them down because of the way that they perceive themselves through you. And you don't want to do that. Okay. Your job isn't to judge someone, it's to develop them. Yes, everybody, especially when you hire them, you guys that work in, those boutique retail locations, a lot of these people typically don't have a lot of experience. It's very rare that you're going to find somebody who has tenured experience and only wants to come in at a sales position, right? It's going to be very rare. So the majority of these people aren't going to have the full skill sets that you're looking for. But spending time training and developing them allows you to give them that. There's certain things that you're looking for in the interview, and we can talk about that. I've done videos on the interview process and the hiring process and what to look for, right? And the methodology behind it. So go through the playlist and take a look for those videos. It's under the STAR method. And you can also look for like recruiting, hiring, interviewing, and you'll find those videos. I mean, obviously, I do more of these, right? Um, but that's a different conversation. Right now, we're talking about the perception that you have of them and that they have of themselves through you and how that limits performance. Because once you do that, you're already saying, I'm not going to help them. They're wasting my time. Nothing I can do is going to help them improve. That's not what you want to do. And this little trick, this little change in the way that you talk about others to yourself and how you talk about yourself as well is something that you can also take to your personal life. And it makes a huge difference in what you do and how you do things when you're talking with others and interacting with others. And that's very, very important to take. I've talked about how a lot of the training and developing that you do is going to help people not just in their career, their professional life, but it also bleeds into their personal, right? A lot of this really makes a world of difference, a big change for everybody, including yourself. So it's very big thing about growth. It is very huge. So let's talk about, you know, how to coach your way out of this particular trap of holding not just your people hostage by the way that you're thinking, but also holding yourself back from being a true great leader with your team, right? So first, labels limit potential. The moment you start saying that, oh, well, they're just an underperformer, or they're my so-so mediocre team, or my so-so players, like I can depend on them, but I know that they're never going to out overperform or whatever. The moment you start saying that is the moment your team believes that. So they will live up to that expectation. Think of like the whole, if you guys haven't seen these videos, look them up, you can find them. But there are experiments, there's research done with like crickets, right? Where crickets can jump very, very tall, very, very high. But if you place a cricket in a jar and you close the lid, the cricket's going to keep jumping and it's going to hit that jar. So what does it start doing? It jumps, but just far enough to not actually bump up against the lid of the jar, right? And the moment you unscrew that jar, the jar is open. They can jump as high as they want. But because that jar lid was there and closed, they will only jump as far as that. They've been conditioned to not jump higher than that. And that's what happens to your people. You're conditioning them through your words that no matter what they do, they will never attain that. So they just don't try. It is a it's something that becomes seeded in them. And it's something that you also seed about them in yourself. So that's what you want to get rid of. You want to toss that away. Okay. Because you're not there to motivate them. You're there to help them become better. You want to remove these false ceilings from them. Okay. Performance is often a reflection of coaching consistency, not an individual's personality, not an individual skill. Okay. Because there's like some air hitting my eyes right now or something. um, but it's not a look at them individually. Okay. Skills are taught, skills are learned. If you've ever played any sports, you know that there are certain things that you wish you could have done when you first started that you ended up doing because it was constant conditioning, constant training. And it wasn't like you trained and focused on the hardest things. You trained and focused on the basics. Think of Michael Jordan, think of Kobe Bryant, right? It's the number of shots that they've taken during the game is very minimal compared to the number of shots that they've taken during training. And if you're a sales leader and you're saying, well, yeah, I've given my people this information, they just don't do anything with it. What you're saying is that you may have given it to them once or twice, if that. And instead of focusing on training and developing, on training off the court, you're wanting them to train on the court during game day. You're setting them up for failure. And that is what you want to avoid. Okay. So, first things first, you need to learn to replace labels with data and daily behaviors. And those daily behaviors are through coaching, through mentoring, through guidance. Omar, I'm never around that often. I visit my stores and I'm able to go to the location 2 to maybe 4 times in a month. That's not enough time for me to be able to give them consistent coaching. You're correct, but you have your local leaders that are there consistently. They can do more, and you have to train them up to do more. And that is one of the biggest things. But even like, say you're a multi-unit leader and you are the manager of 2 or 3 or 4 locations. You don't have an actual local leader there. You might have a lead or an assistant. You yourself, even spending 15 minutes during your visits, just coaching them, training them, and mentoring them will still go a far longer way and will still yield better results than just doing nothing and hoping that they will figure it out on their own. A little bit of guidance goes a very long way. That's super important to understand. And I wish a lot more people would actually take that to heart. It's kind of like working out. A lot of people think that you have to do a bunch of, different kind of workouts, reps. If you guys go to the gym, you understand that you really don't, right? You focus on 3 to 4, maybe, muscle groups, which means you're probably doing 2 to 4 different exercises. You're just doing multiple sets of those, right? You're doing reps and sets. Um, but even for the layperson, right? For the normal average Joe, average individual, you don't have to go to the gym every fucking day. You can do small workouts, focusing on core, focusing on, things you can do at the house that will yield you those results. And it's because it's done on a consistent basis. It helps with it. And that's the crazy thing. It's the same thing when it comes to coaching and mentoring. A little bit still goes long further way than trying to do an 8-hour course, 8-hour training, taking them offsite or something like that to do a bunch of data dumping only for them to forget the majority of it and hopefully remember 20, maybe 30%, depending on how well they took notes, how well their memory is, right? How they were feeling that day. A lot more variables in there. But micro coaching sessions, 15, 20 minutes, goes a very long way in changing the performance of your team and changing the way that your team sees themselves. And more importantly, how you as a leader see your individual teams, your individual team players. It goes that far of a difference. Now, coaching is a mindset. It's not about just metrics, right? Your reps won't outperform the identity you allow to settle into, okay? Into them and into yourself. As a leader, you have to change the perspective that you have of your individual players. As a new executive, right? As a new DM, as a new area manager, as a new regional director, you don't want to come in and say, well, I took a look at the list of people, right, and their numbers over the last 3 months, and these are the people that got to go. That's the worst thing you can do. Okay. Because, okay, I'm just going to replace them all. First things first, let me meet the people. Let me see what's going on. I'm not going to spend 90 days figuring out every single person, right? But there's a methodology that you can go through to understand where everybody's at. And first thing is first, are the local leaders doing any kind of coaching, any kind of developing and training? Is there any kind of program that you have right now that was implemented by the previous individual in that area to do coaching, training, and developing? If the answer is no to any of them, first things first. All right, we got to set up on focusing on lifting you up, on training and developing. Obviously, some people are going to leave. That's just the nature of it because different leader, they don't understand, they don't want to learn, they don't want to stick around and see if things are going to be better or worse, right? Some people are going to leave. You're going to find have to bring people in. But my experience taking over new territories is I saved as many of the employees as I possibly could. And the performance in those territories more than doubled. And I'm not saying they doubled in a year. I'm saying the performance shift doubled in less than 6 months. There is an immediate increase within about 60 to 30 days at the majority of the locations. The majority of my people always above quota, not having to worry about that. That was done through coaching, training, and developing by spending a little bit of time figuring out what the actual issue was, which was there's no development plan, there's no coachings done. Everybody was just, well, we're just going to throw spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks. No, let's focus in on this, focus on the basics. This is what we're going to do. Personalize it to to yourself, to your personality, right? That framework. Boom. Now people are seeing results they didn't see before. Now they're hitting numbers they didn't see before. Maybe they're selling 10% more than they were before, but their KPIs are a lot healthier. So even though it's 10% more in sales, their commissions are 20 to 30% more than it was before. Your KPIs for those metrics are going up amazingly because you're attaining those metrics that weren't being hit before. That big of a difference. And you think your people are going to be, oh, I'm just going to keep at this 10%. It's like, no, this is easier. They're going to do more over time. This is just the starting. And that's a crazy thing a lot of people don't understand. When I talk about small shifts in change in performance early on, 45, 60 days, where it's 10, 15% change, we're not talking about 10, 15% change that's going to be stagnant for the year. My experience, and this is something that I've seen nationwide, is that they will continue to improve because it gets easier with time. They found better shortcuts for themselves and mentally, right? They have better heuristic setup. They have better habit setup. So now instead of being 10 and 15% better, they're 25, 35, 50% better. That is the power of coaching. That is the power of taking time to train, develop, and mentor your people. That is the power of not limiting your people through your thoughts by saying that's how they are. By saying, yeah, they're never going to be a top seller. They're never going to be a top performer. That is the power that those words hold because it's what they see in themselves through your eyes and what you are willing to do to guide and mentor them. When you say those words or when you start thinking that, you're automatically, even if you try to do a coaching session, you'll be less effective. It is crazy, but that's also what you're doing as a form of visualization. If you think it, it's going to happen. So if you think your team can't perform, your team won't perform. But if you think that your team has the ability, the innate ability to really perform, they just need a little bit of push to really get good at those skills, at that craft. That's what we're talking about. That's what it means to be a leader. And what does that mean for you as a leader? It means you have less churn, you have less employee attrition. Your employees stay longer. They're better at what they do. New employees come in, their ramp up period is much faster. Their productivity is amazing within a 45, 90-day period. If you guys don't know this, I've always implemented a 90-day new hire milestone period where that is the amount of training that I would have an employee go through. It wasn't 90 days every single day, but it was structured over 90 days with more intensity at the front end of the training, the development portion, and a little bit more time through the end of the 90th day. Okay. But it was structured so that they had time to be able to take in all the information, utilize it, and be successful with it so that they can see results faster and create those habits sooner. It's part of the habit loop creation. And that is what allowed them to become successful at a faster rate and have more confidence in selling. But also, I had spent time with my veteran employees to make sure they were there too. So it was easier for people to work with each other. It was easier for new employees to see the vets, what they were doing, and learn from them. And a lot of the veterans had already gone through a lot of the coaching. So it's very simple, very similar for them to also share that information, help coach somebody else without realizing what they were doing. And now you have the makings of future leaders. Now you start building your bench, your future pipeline of managers for the organization. It goes a long way. You have to start by saying, I am not going to limit my team's capabilities. I'm not going to limit what my team is capable of achieving. And that's where you have to start. Now, that also leads to, having those uncoachable reps that, you know, they're never going to get it. They have bad personalities. It's not that. It's that they haven't been coached correctly. They haven't had people in their life who give a damn about them, right? Maybe they never played sports or were involved in any type of extracurricular activity. So they haven't had that experience of having somebody say, you know what? I'm going to take time and coach and develop you. I want you. I know you have this capability. I know that you have this talent and it's just needing to come out and we have to help really get you there. They haven't had that experience. And you might be saying, Omar, I'm fine. Everybody should be like me. I was able to do this myself. I bootstrapped it. You didn't fucking bootstrap shit. You had somebody that guided you, mentored you, spent time in giving you the proper information, saying, you know what? Uh, this is what you want to focus on. This is what you want to do, right? What's your experience? And letting you really go through it and taking ownership of what your actions, what you were going to do to get to that next level, to unlock that next level of leadership or skills that you're working towards. You had somebody in your corner. Now it's time for you to be that somebody for other people. And you would be surprised at what can come out of it, right? Leadership is guiding, it's mentoring, it's not judging. You don't need to fire reps, you don't need to find reps. What you need is to do coaching differently. And that's going to go a long way. Okay. So stop labeling your individual players, your teams with stuff like they just won't cut it, with they're just not there performance wise. They'll never be a great seller. Stop, stop with that and start leading them. Start letting them actually perform to be a great individual leader, to be great at what they do. That is what it means for you to be a leader. And that's what you want to focus on. Hey, thanks for all the likes, man. So if you're wondering, hey, Omar, I want to start getting better. I want to become better at this leadership, at coaching and mentoring and helping guide other people. I don't know how to do that. Well, you're in luck. There's a link in my bio. If you're watching this video on any of the platforms, grab the video there or grab the link from that video description. It's a 15-minute framework. It's free to download and use it right away. It walks you through essentially doing a 15-minute coaching session. And the amazing thing about it is that it's based on psychology. It's something I've built over 10 plus years. I used it myself personally on myself for the longest time, and then I developed it for other people. And that's when it really took off. And that's when I started to see performance really become what it was and become off the charts. And that's what you want to be able to do with your team. Take time, become a leader for them, and watch your team soar. With that, guys, I want to say thanks again for taking time, spending it with me here at the Sales Manager Academy podcast. I'm Omar, and I'll catch you on the next one.